one of the things I would like to do on this video is to read and compare the Hebrew with the Septuagint of Psalm 23. And we'll look at the grammar of both inductively and do a comparison. A Mizmor le David is the Hebrew, Adonai ro'i lo echsad. And I've done already many videos on Psalm 22 in Hebrew, so I'll do it quickly, but then get into the Septuagint. A psalm belonging to David. Adonai ro'i, the Lord shepherds me. Here we have a participle, a cow participle, masculine singular from ra'ah with the pronominal suffix in the hirik yod. Lo does not, I shall never lack. Negative particle echsad is your cow imperfect first common singular from chasad. I shall never lack. By the way, I would encourage anyone following to follow along in the Hebrew and the Septuagint to pick up the grammar of both as well as the flow of thought of each one. So the Septuagint then, in reading it, Kyrios poimane me kai uden me husterese. The Lord shepherds me, and he will, or with reference to me, it shall not lack. I'm understanding husterese. Well, first of all, poimane is your present indicative active third person singular from poimaino. He shepherds me, and nothing, and meh here, I shall not lack. I'm understanding meh as the subject of husterese. Husterese is your future indicative active third person singular from hustereo. And I shall want in nothing, or in nothing it shall lack with reference to me. And I'm understanding meh here as an accusative of general reference. So I shall not lack in nothing. Again, very close to the Hebrew in terms of the way it was translated. Then we come to verse 2 in the Hebrew. Benot desha yarbitseni al me menuchot yanachaleni. Beside pastures of green grass, he causes me to recline. Beside waters of resting places, he leads me. Notice here, Yarbitseni from Rabatz, it's a Hifil imperfect third masculine singular from Rabatz with the thematic vowel pattern of an A-I vowel pattern. We have a tseri under the sadi with the noon, the hinge, bringing us to the pronominal suffix first person singular in the E. So he causes me to lie down. Al me menuchot yanachaleni, and beside waters of resting places, he leads me. Yanachaleni is from nahal, to lead. It's a PL imperfect third masculine singular. Notice the thematic pattern, vowel pattern of the Shavah Pathat. The hey cannot be doubled because it's a guttural, but it is a PL imperfect, followed then by, again, the pronominal suffix in the E, following the hinge in A. So beside waters of resting places, he leads me. The Septuagint reads, very interesting, in verse 2, it reads, epi, or excuse me, eis tapan klois ake me kates genosin, epi hudatas anapausaos exetrepseme. That is, in or unto a place of green grass, playes, there he causes me to dwell. Kates skenosin. Here we have a very interesting read of that first phrase. And then the last part would be epihudatas anapausaos exetrepsime. And that is, he has nourished me beside paths of righteousness on account of his name's sake. In other words, he has nourished me by, we could say, the waters of rest, or he has nourished me by waters of rest. So we begin here in the place of grass. There he has caused me or made me dwell. Kataskenosin is from kataskenao, to dwell. It's the aorist indicative active third person singular from kataskenao, literally to dwell down or to be at home. And then beside a water of rest, he nourished me, or he has nourished me. We could say beside water, and probably here it's a singular collective, beside waters of rest, anapasaos, exetrepsime, he nourished me. Exetrepsime, exetrepsime, or me, is from ektrepho, to nourish. Here we have, again, the aorist indicative active third person singular from ektrepho. So he made me to dwell in the place of green grass, and he has nourished me by the waters of rest. Again, the Hebrew said that he leads me. In the Hebrew, it's put in the present or future, where in the Septuagint it's in the past. And then he leads me beside still waters, or waters of resting places. And here we have it in the past in the Septuagint. That is, unto the place of grass, there he has made me to dwell, looking at a completed action. And beside waters of rest, he nourished me. A beautiful picture here where the Hebrew has, he leads me. And so here it's looking at nourishing. Then as we move on to the next verse, in the Hebrew, it reads, he restores my soul. Nafshi yeshuvev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek lema'an shmo. He brings back my soul. Notice yashovev is from shuv, and here we have a polel imperfect, third masculine singular, from this middle weak verb shuk. And you have that happen where you have these hollow middle weak verbs. You'll have a polel often used in putting it into the intensive kind of an idea, since we cannot double the middle radical, since it has become a vowel. So my soul he restores, or he gives it back. Yancheni b'makalei tzedek lema'an shmo. That is, he guides me in the beaten paths, tried paths of righteousness for the sake of his name. And yancheni is from nacha. It's a lamed hey verb, where the hey is elided. It's another hifil imperfect, third masculine singular, with a thematic vowel of an A-E vowel pattern. And then the E is the pronominal suffix first person singular. So he leads me, or he guides me in the beaten paths of righteousness. That is, the paths that were tried, The shepherd had gone over them many, many times, and his name is at stake for the sake of his name. It's interesting. The Septuagint then reads, Tain psuchain, or psuchain mu, epestrepsin, hodegesin me epitribus dikaiasunes, chenaken tu anamatas autu. That is, he has restored my soul. Again, in that phrase, epestrepsin is your aorist indicative active third person singular from epistrepho. So he restored. Notice epistrepho, you have your augment in this compound verb in the epsilon before strepse, and then epistrepho, the phi and the sigma coalescing, coming together, changes to a psi in the aorist here. So we would read it, he has restored my soul. And then hodegesin me epitribus dikaiasunes. That is, he has guided me. Hodegesin is your aorist indicative active third person singular from chadegeo. He has guided me in the paths of righteousness on account of his name. Again, in the Hebrew, it's put in what looks like more the present tense. He restores my soul. Nafshi yeshoveh. He guides me, yanheni, the imperfect, in the beaten paths of righteousness for his name's sake. However, in the Septuagint, it's put in the past, the aorist. And so, as we're reading the Septuagint, he has, notice, restored. It's a done deal, my soul. And he has guided me, aorist, a punctiliar conclusive action in the paths of righteousness on account of his name. And then we come to this great verse, verse 4, which in the Hebrew reads, and I love this, Gam ki alek begate salmavet lo irara ki ata imadi. Shiftacha uminshantecha hemi yanachamuni. Even though I should walk in the valley of deep darkness. Salmavet here means deep darkness. Shadow of death, we took the two together, Salmavet, it would mean shadow of death, but it's one word in Hebrew meaning deep darkness. So even though I should walk, and Alek is from halak, it's a cow imperfect first common singular from halak. The hay has elided. Even though I walk in the valley of deep darkness, lo irara, notice the alliterative beauty here, I will not fear evil. Yara is the root cow imperfect first common singular. And ra is another, it's actually an adjective, meaning I shall not fear an evil thing. Ki ata imadi, for you are with me. And then shiftacha uminshantecha hemi yanachamuni, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And notice yanachamuni is a PL imperfect, third person plural, masculine plural, with the E ending, looking at the first person singular pronominal suffix. So we have a PL here, imperfect, third masculine plural. And notice the kibbutz under the mem puts it in the plural. So in your, we would read it here, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And the Septuagint, then, reading it, it reads, An God kept parutho in meso skias thanatu. And if, or even if I should go in the midst of the shadow of death. It's interesting, they understood Salmavet as two words, Sal, shadow, Mavet, death. Where in Hebrew it seems to be one word meaning deep darkness, as it's used throughout the Hebrew scriptures. So, and here we have parutho, even if I should walk. Here we have the aorist active subjunctive, first person singular, even though I should walk in the midst of the shadow of death. Think of lutho, luthes, luthe, luthomen, lutheten, luthosin. So here it would parallel that if you're following a luo paradigm in parutho from paruamai. So even if I should walk in the midst of the shadow of death, u fabetesamai kaka, I shall not be afraid of evil things, or I shall not fear, be afraid of evil things or of evils. And I'm understanding fabetesamai to be the future indicative passive first person singular from fabeo. You think of lutesamai, lutese, lutesetai. Here we have, using the paradigm of luo, the same here, the same ending in thesamai. So I shall not be afraid of evil things, kisu met emu a, for you are with me. Ki ata imadi. And here the Septuagint adds a, which is your present indicative active second person singular from ami, a, estin, and so forth. In other words, for you are with me. And then he raptasu kai he bacteriasu, your rod and your staff, alte chalte me parekalasin. They comfort me. They me comfort, emphatically here. They comfort me. And notice here, parekalasin is your aorist indicative active third person plural from parakaleo. So even though I should walk in the midst of the shadow of death, I shall not be afraid of evil things. And I'm taking kaka here to be an adjective neuter, meaning evil things, understood. Because you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And it's interesting when you look at the Hebrew, even though I walk in the valley of deep darkness, Salmavet, lo irara, I shall not fear evil. And here it has, I shall not be afraid of evil things in the Septuagint. Ki ata imadi, for you are with me. Here the you are understood. And then shiftecha min shantecha hema yenachamuni. They comfort me, your rod and your staff. That phrase would parallel the Septuagint, you are with me, he raptasu kahe bacteriasu chauteme parakalasin. They have comforted me. Again, we're looking at the past, especially when we're reading that, well, not totally, for if I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall not be afraid of evil, because you are with me. That's the present. And your rod and your staff, they have comforted me in the past. Again, where the Hebrew has just, they will comfort me. It's interesting to me how the Septuagint tends to put some of these present forms in Hebrew into the aorist or into the past throughout here. So that's the Septuagint and some of the differences in comparison. It's wonderful to know that Jesus in the New Testament says he is the good shepherd and he is always with us, even in the dark times of life. What a beautiful encouragement to know that if we have our faith rooted in Christ.